So we've looked at many examples of using curves in the family editor throughout this course. And we've looked at closed curves and open curves. We've looked at circular and elliptical, even splines. We've looked at a lot of different things. And what I'd like to do in this chapter is actually tie it all together and combine several of the techniques that we've previously looked at and make a more complicated form. So what we're ultimately going to do here is create an arched doorway, complete with a curved top door panel and a really nice ornate molding that goes around it. And it's going to start with the shape of the doorway. So that's what we're looking at right here. And it's a slightly different arch than we've seen before. This is a 3-center arch. Now, you could argue that we could do the same form or a very similar one with an elliptical arch, and you certainly could. So I welcome you to try that. But in this case, I'm specifically doing 3 circular arcs. And you can see where their center points are indicated with the big cross symbols in the middle there. Now, notice that between the 3 centers, you end up with an equilateral triangle. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of equality going on here. You can see that there's an equal at the top left between where we need the reference plane and the outside edge of the width. There's the Y1 indicated twice. That gives us another equal relationship. And we've got the equal across the bottom, setting the locations of the centers. So if we compile all of that, that's going to give us a few formulas that we're going to need in our family. So the first one's really simple. X1, the short side of the little triangle there, is just the width divided by 6, and that's because of all the equality. Y1 uses the tangent function, but because we have equilateral triangles, we don't need a variable for the angle. We just simply plug in 60 there and let Revit do the math for us. So that's really easy. R1 is X1 times 2, and again, this is because of the equality. So if you look at the diagram, you can see that makes sense. And then finally, R2 is just double R1. So these are actually really simple formulas to create this shape. So here we are in Revit, and I've done some of the work for you already. I've provided a file called 3-center arch, and it just has a series of reference planes that are laid out to match that diagram that we had back in the slide. So you can see that my X1 is applied here and here. I've got my Y1 here and here. We're going to ask for the height and the overall width, and then everything else is really being controlled with equality dimensions. So the first thing that I want to do is go into the family types and input those formulas that we just talked about. So I'm going to go over here to family types and start right at the top here with X1. And X1 needs to be the width divided by 6. Y1, we said, was X1 times the tangent of 60 degrees. And again, Revit can just do that math for us. R2, well, let me do R1 first, kind of do this in order here, is X1 times 2, and then R2 is R1 times 2. So you can see very simple formulas. We can flex it out here. So let me try 3 feet for the width. When I do, everything recalculates. And of course, in the background, you see everything redistribute the way it's supposed to. So I'm going to stick with 4 for now, reapply that, go back and click OK. So the next step is to add the arcs. So remember, this is a profile family, so I'm just drawing the 2D shape. So I'm going to go to my line tool, use my center ends arc, use this intersection right here for the center of the circle, and the start point will be this intersection, and snap the end point to this intersection. I'm going to repeat over here, center, intersection to intersection, and then I'm going to stop, cancel out, and clean up a little bit. So I've got all my automatic sketch dimensions, and I'll just use my align and lock. Remember, it's reference plane to point and lock. Reference plane to point and lock. When I'm done, I'll cancel out of that command. Now, I've only locked the 2 endpoints on both sides. I still need the center points if I want to make sure that nothing's going to move on me. So I'll just select both of these arcs, enable their center marks, go back to align, and align and lock those as well. Now, what I like to do next is select these 2 arcs and temporarily hide them. That just kind of gets them out of my way so that when I draw the next arc, I know for sure that I'm locking to the right thing. Now, the only bad thing about that is you have to remember what points you need to use for that. So we're going to snap one endpoint here and the other endpoint here. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to go to my center ends arc again. The center point is down here this time. Start point is there. End point is there. Cancel. Turn on the center mark. And then align and lock. cancel out of the command, and reset the temporary hide. So there's my curve. Probably should flex it. Let me zoom out a little bit and give myself some room for the family types dialog. Move that over here. I'll try 3, click apply, and everything flexes as we expect. I'm going to go back to 4, click OK, and it comes back. So now I just simply need to add 3 straight lines down around here. And don't forget to align and lock it. Remember, it's reference plane to line. So when you're done, it should look something like this. Go ahead and flex it one more time just to make sure it's working, and then save it on your desktop, and you'll have it ready for the next movie.